Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the Meet RX Success Story podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Dr. David Harper. Welcome, Dave.
Pleasure to be on the show today, and it was nice doing that live chat with Dr. Baker just a while ago too. So, and a pleasure to meet you too, Amber.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, Shawn's awesome. I love all his interviews. So y'all be sure to check out Dr. Harper's interview with Shawn too. So don't forget that. Okay, let's jump in with the first question. I want to know what your life like was prior to starting a more animal protein-based diet. What was going on in your life?
Sure. Well, I should mention that I'm a scientist, a researcher, a health educator, and for years, decades, I had taught and ate what I thought was supposed to be a healthy diet, which is, now I guess called the standard Western diet, which is a high carbohydrate, low fat, low, moderate protein diet. And I was in good health, not taking any medication, approaching a middle-ish age, like early middle age. And, things were starting to trickle a little bit. My weight was going up a little bit, not so much blood pressure, blood sugar, they're all kind of trickling up a little bit. And I just thought at the time, that's just what happens when you get older. You just, these things happen. And so I was in good health. I was not overweight. I was not obese. And I had no, comorbidities, they call them, no conditions. But I am grateful now that I did what I did when I did, which is about 10 years ago now, because I realized that those effects of aging are not a must. You can actually reverse a lot of that, and you can even reverse your biological age considerably through diet. Diet, I strongly believe, is the most important lifestyle decision you make every day. So what's on the end of your fork is important. And I should mention that I'm a ketogenic diet person. That's what I've come on to. I wrote this book called BioDiet here, which we talked about a little bit on the show, and that tells you how to adopt a ketogenic diet. I would call that an omnivore diet, but meat forward. I certainly think there's a reason there's an egg on the cover of this, because I think it's nature's perfect food. And so when we're talking about meat and carnivore diets, I put all animal products into that meat category, which includes, dairy and eggs and fish and chicken and so on, as opposed to, plant material. But I do eat plant material, but most of my nutrition and by far most of my calories come from animal products and probably from saturated fat-laden animal products.
That's perfect. So could you kind of give us an idea of what maybe a typical day looks like for you? And did you have any transitional issues when you started going more ketogenic?
Yeah. Well, this is the way my day starts. This is tea with full fat cream in it. Once you do that, you'll never go back. Coffee's the same way. I use full fat cream in my coffee. I'm a health educator. I'm a healthy person. I exercise. I try and lead a very healthy lifestyle. And what I realized, it was a critical moment. I was actually doing a radio show called Think for Yourself about critical reasoning, and we had a guest on that was a nutrition researcher. And it was in the middle of the show, Amber. We were talking away, and we were talking about whether exercise or diet is more important for weight management. And I was taking the exercise side because I'm a kinesiology professor as well. His name is Dr. Richard Mathias. He's a professor emeritus at University of British Columbia School of Public Health. And he's just looked at me and said, what do you think causes obesity? And I gave the standard, it's a multifactorial condition that has to do with, genetic factors and hormonal factors and psychosocial factors, blah, blah, blah. And he just waited for me to stop, and he just said, no, it's not. He just said, it's your body's physiological response to excess carbohydrate in the diet. And you have to understand, I'm a physiologist, so I understand the physiology. And when he said that to me, I literally couldn't talk. I was just like, because in my brain, my, a couple of decades of physiology understanding just said, oh my God, he's right. And when someone says that to you in the middle of a radio interview, they call it dead air. And, my co-host was kind of elbowing me, say something, Dave. And I just said, I think you're right. And so I spent years researching, looking for the evidence in particular that saturated fat caused heart disease. There isn't any. You don't waste your time. There's no hard, robust evidence that saturated fats on their own cause heart disease. And then I looked at the ketogenic diet. I started doing some studies, some experiments at my University of the Fraser Valley here in Vancouver in Canada, with people, with humans. And then, but before I did that, I thought I better, design something myself that's well formulated. That's a term coined by Dr. Stephen Phinney, which means it provides full nutrition. And so I put it all into BioDiet, and it's sort of a step-by-step process, but I did it myself, and I lost 27 pounds of mid-abdominal fat. So I went from like high 170s to where I am now 10 years later, haven't gained or lost a pound since. And that fat, of course, correlates with inflammation, insulin resistance and other things that cause chronic disease. So I was able to reverse that trend, that slow, inexorable aging thing, and reverse my biological age back to sort of early 30s. I'm now 60. And I'm healthier than I have been for decades. And I know that because of the kinds of biomarkers you can look at, not just your waist size, but, your blood lipid profile and your blood pressure and the levels of inflammatory markers in your blood and so on. That's how I calculate my my biological age. So it was quite an interesting journey. Still on it. My wife too. We adopted that together. She had similar results. You get the first big change in about a couple of months. And the biggest change for us, Amber, was not so much the diet, but the lifestyle that goes around it. You're buying fresh food, so you have to buy it more often. You have to think about food more, which, by the way, is a good thing. You got to learn some new recipes and that sort of thing. But once you've established that, which you can do in that couple of months, then it's so satisfying. Because a carnivore diet, a keto diet, it's high in fat, and fat is where all the flavor is. That's where all the energy is. And contrary to what you might think, eating fat makes you slim. It doesn't make you fat. Eating sugar and high glycemic index carbohydrates, that'll make you fat. That's how they fatten cows, And it works the same on humans, it turns out. Look around you, 2/3 to 3/4 of North Americans are now overweight or obese because they've been eating high carb diets.
I absolutely agree with you. After going through what I went through and hearing all of the research and other people talk about it, yeah. Well, okay, so let's rewind just a little bit and give me what a typical day looks like. Like, what do you eat?
It's all fresh food, right? So mornings, a lot of people think keto is just Atkins, so it's bacon and eggs 3 times a day. I have bacon and eggs once or twice a week. I eat, mornings, if it's that avocado with it, we eat a lot of avocados. Nuts, big fan of nuts. They provide all kinds of good phytochemicals. You ought to be careful because some of them are a little higher in carbs. Berries, I'll eat a handful of berries. But my day really in the mornings, if it's not eggs, and my wife and I probably eat 3 or 4 dozen eggs a week, and we're not suffering by it. So eggs would be, I make like egg muffins, which are kind of like that. We make some bread, which is very much like bread that's made, with egg and psyllium husk and almond butter and that sort of thing. I don't usually eat midday much. And my wife she's got a smaller eating window. She usually doesn't eat till after midday, but I'll have that full fat, big, like latte filled with, cream, midday. And then dinner would look like anybody else's home cooked meal. There's no pasta, rice, potatoes, or anything on the plate. Instead there's a little bit of vegetables, but I consider myself an omnivore, but meat based and meat focused. Like we choose what we're going to have based around the meat that we're going to have. And I think with meat, sometimes people, they think meat is just beef, but I consider meat all animal products. So chicken and fish and lamb and pork, and we change around all that stuff. I've looked at the research, and in the absence of this high glycemic index carbohydrate, there's no increased risk of any colon cancer or stomach cancer or any of those things if you're eating. I do try and get organic. I like meats and animal products that have been humanely raised, and fortunately, we're not paid great, but on my salary, I can afford to do that. Actually, on a ketogenic diet, you don't really spend a lot of money because you're not spending on that value added in the process of processing foods. You can get good quality meat products, thankfully, pretty much everywhere. And here in Vancouver, we're on the coast, so we get lots of seafood as well, which is nice. But last night I had a nice, prime rib with all the fat, and I ate all that fat. It was delicious. It was, grass-fed, and grass-fed's kind of important because grass-fed beef, for example, has a much better omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, and omega-3 is the beneficial omega, and omega-6 is inflammatory. So grass-fed butter, eat a lot of that. My wife just made some keto ice cream with pecans. That's going to be delicious. We've had that before. But I don't. One of the cool things about a ketogenic diet is you don't get hungry. Not in the way you do on the boom and bust sort of cycle of insulin and low blood sugar and high blood sugar that you get on a high carb diet. I can get up and go all day till dinner time and not eat. I generally don't, but if I do, I don't, I'm not starving, right? And my brain is working fine and I'm not cranky because I'm burning fats all the time. And you can only store a couple of hours worth of sugar in your body, and then you got to eat more sugar, even though there's only a teaspoon in your blood at any point in time. But you can burn fat all day. So it's kind of like, if you think of your metabolism like a fireplace, carbohydrate is kind of like kindling. You put it on there, it burns bright, and then like 2 minutes later it's gone. You got to put more kindling on, right? You got to eat another muffin or a cookie or something. But on a ketogenic diet, when you're burning fat, it's like a log. So you put the log on the fire, you close the door, and you stay warm all day.
I love the fire analogy. It's perfect. I mean, it makes everything very clear. Okay, so you've kind of gone over some of the improvements that you've noticed, but could you go down one more time and just kind of list some of the things? And was there anything that just kind of surprised you weren't expecting, besides the social aspect, or the learning how to do the diet and that kind of thing? There is a brief period, a couple of days to a couple of weeks, where I was learning this as I went, and some people call it the keto flu. You feel a little bit unwell for a while. Most of that, it turns out, is due to salts, and so it turns out if you just provide all those salts, magnesium salts in particular, but also sodium and so on, because when you're cutting out processed food, that's half of your, or more of the sodium you get is going to be in that processed food, especially bread. So you actually have to add more sodium to your diet, and calcium, magnesium. Make sure you get all that, let your kidneys sort it out. So that was I think anybody who's keto adapted, which would be all your carnivore community, probably experience something. Sometimes you get some dizziness, lightheadedness. Most of that is actually due to the salts. So if you get the salts right, you can ameliorate a lot of those or mitigate a lot of those symptoms. And then, you do lose, there's a diuretic effect. So you do lose a lot of water. And some people, out there, they're sort of anti-keto. Oh, it's just water loss. Well, in the first couple of weeks, most of it is just water loss. And that's because you're retaining more water, because when you have a high carb diet, you have high insulin levels, and insulin makes you reabsorb more salt from your kidneys. And when you absorb salt, you absorb water. So when you do the reverse, you lose some water in it. There's a diuretic effect, which actually is nice because it lowers your blood pressure too, without using any medication. So I was surprised at how much weight I'd lost in the first 10 days or so, about, probably 10 pounds in the first couple of weeks. And then what I noticed was, my clothes were all loose again and getting looser. And, because I had 27 pounds of body fat, in around my waist mostly, and still fit, healthy, still within normal weight, but extra fat that I didn't need. And that fat's not healthy. So what I noticed, first of all, because I did a DEXA test to, look at my fat deposition. You should always do this with your physician, make sure they know what you're doing. So I did it at the beginning and the end. And so I guess a couple of things was, one is I noticed how much weight I was losing, how much fat I was losing, right? Without feeling bad, with actually feeling pretty good after that keto flu thing, actually feeling great. Like my mind just cleared too. And then at the end of it, when we did the DEXA test again and we did all the blood work again, all that stuff, I just going,
I was going to use a word, but since we're going out there, oh heck, this really works. and so that's when I started doing these other studies with other people at the university, and everybody was getting these reports back. And above all, not everybody loses the same amount of weight. Nutrition has to be personalized, but everybody I've ever worked with, if they stick with it for the 12 weeks, 3 months, they all say they feel better. They just say they feel great. They feel like cotton wool's been pulled out of their brain. They're thinking clearly. Their mood is better. Their skin look at your skin. Your skin looks better, right? It's almost an anti-aging effect, certainly in terms of biological age. And so I guess my biggest surprise was that it works, and it's super powerful, and there's no drugs involved, and you're eating a diet that you can actually adapt to and enjoy. And you're not at the whim of what the processed food industry thinks you should be eating. You're choosing your own food. You're having a better, healthier relationship with food. And frankly, you're helping a part of the agricultural industry that's been overlooked and demonized for decades. The egg farmers, the chicken farmers, the cattle ranchers. Those people are doing their best to feed us high quality food. And I, there's no question, I'm also a biologist. If you look at the evolutionary past, there's no question that if given the choice, humans will eat meat first. They're not going to go, if there's meat there and available, they're not going to go and chew on grass and eat nuts and things like that. They're going to eat meat first. And that's the natural human diet. And I guess what I realized was, wow, all I've done is what nature built me to do, is to eat the diet that I evolved to eat. And when you do that, you reverse ill health. Most of the 70% of the chronic disease we have is due to, insulin resistance, inflammation, and obesity. You reverse that, you put yourself in better health, you feel better. And, I use this phrase a lot, but, what's on the end of your fork is the most important behavioral decision or lifestyle decision you make every day. It's more important than whether you're going to smoke or drink or sit on your bum all day or whatever. You really got to think about what's on the end of that fork. And if it comes in a package or it says, Nutri or healthy on it, it probably isn't. What is healthy is, good old grass-fed cattle ranch beef and eggs and chicken and fish. And then, as I say, I eat plant stuff as well because I enjoy it. It adds some nutrients, especially, things like nuts and nuts are kind of like nature's version of an egg, or plant version of an egg, right? So, and I like nuts and I get some salt through them and maybe a handful of berries. But, I've heard great success stories too of people on carnivore diets, even, able to slow or reverse things like Parkinson's, same weight loss, because carnivore diets are ketogenic. Not all ketogenic diets are carnivore, but all carnivore diets, unless, as I said earlier, kind of a joke, unless all you're eating is liver. And I don't think people eat just liver variants or whatever. So anyway, thank you very much for this opportunity to share my experience with people out there. And, if they're interested in reading more about how to keto adapt, biodiet.org is our website. And if they're listening and they'd like to send me an email, they can do that through the website as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Dave.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you. And you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Bye, Dave.
Bye.